Do you want to achieve financial freedom? Do you want to retire earlier than your peers? If the answer to both questions is a yes, then watch this video right to the end because I want to give you some ideas on how you can also own a house, your home, and at the same time retire earlier than your peers. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Calvin and I'm from Wealth Insiders. If you want to learn to be financially free, retire earlier than your peers, and learn about wealth creation strategies, start right now by clicking on the subscribe button here and click on the bell so that you do not miss any future videos from me. One thing you have to be careful with, especially if you are thinking of achieving financial freedom and also retiring earlier than your peers, is actually your home. I know all of us at a very young age, we've been conditioned to we have this dream anyway, that we want to buy that big mansion. That's what our dream is. And this is something that you'll be very careful because why? It's very emotional. And not only that, we have this idea that the rich people will stay in nice house, stay in nice neighborhood. But this book, The Millionaire Next Door, actually is saying something different. Right? This book was the result of a survey done of more than 1,000 people. Rich people to be exact. And not only that, they answer more than around 250 questions. And this is what they found about people who are rich, people who are wealthy, people who are staying in nice houses, nice neighborhoods. They are not necessarily wealthy. On the other hand, those who are wealthy probably is your next door neighbor because they just stay in normal houses and they stay in normal neighborhood. And this is really something that we probably have to get around when we are talking about retiring early and achieving financial freedom. One of the richest men in the world, Warren Buffett, do you know what kind of house he stays? In fact, he had been staying in the same house since 1958. And if you count back, we are looking at he's been staying in this house for 62 years. The profile that we think about as rich people, they will have to stay in a big mansion and things like that is wrong. When you first start work, the first couple of months, what happens is the first thing you want to buy is actually your car. Then the next big investment that we'll be thinking of buying is actually the house, the home that we want. But my recommendation is that at least for the first few years of your working life, consider staying with your parents. Yes, you may need to put a bit of money as rent money, but it is nothing compared to owning our own home. Because when you own your own home, the expenses is a lot. Right? When you decide to buy your own house, again, a lot of us wanted to buy that big mansion. My recommendation is that don't do that. Don't do that. You go and buy a house that's just enough for the moment. Because studies have shown that we will change our home, we upgrade our home every few years. Some say it's every 5 years, some say it's every 10 years. But we upgrade along the way. But don't go straight for the big house, right? So why do people move? Why do people change their homes? Well, it's because their life circumstances change. For example, when we are single, when we become married, right? You probably you can still stay in maybe a one-room apartment or something like that. But then when the children comes along, then probably you want to have a bigger space so that the children can run around, right? And as children gets older, then let's say you have two children, then you want to have maybe each of them have their own room, and therefore you want to buy a bigger house with more rooms, right? And then as they go to college, as they go to university, then what happens? Then there will be the empty nest syndrome. Then we will find that sometimes the house becomes too big, right? We cannot upkeep anymore. It's cleaning, it's becoming a problem, and things like that. And what happens? We will downgrade to a smaller house now. And then as we get older, then probably we will move into with our children, or maybe even go into a care home, residential care home. So that's why people change their house over time. So that's why don't get fixated that I must get that one house, that dream house right at the beginning of your working life. The idea is like this. When you get your monthly salary, what happens is that you will have to pay off all those monthly commitments that you have, right? Of course, one of the commitments that you have will be your car loan. And then subsequently, the other big one is actually your housing loan. So the idea is to keep this expense to be as low as possible. And that's the reason why we want to ask you to consider buying those houses where you don't need to pay so much on a monthly basis, this loan that you have. So okay, come back to the story. So you keep this expense as low as possible, and therefore you have a bigger leftover from your salary. And from this, you put into an investment pot or investment account, right? And from this, with this money, you go out to buy investment assets that will give you passive income every month, or could be every year, depending on what class of assets you buy. So over time, you keep doing it every month. You go and buy assets, investment assets, extra money from your salary, buy investment assets. And over time, you'll find that this passive income means money that comes in without you needing to work, right? So when this passive income gets more than your monthly expenses, that's when you are financially free. That's when you can choose to retire or not. The choice is yours. So get a house that is just enough for you. Because if you decide to buy a big house, you know what happens? Not only is your housing loan that you're going to pay is going to be a lot. The utility bill is going to be going high. Your electricity bill will go high. That's the first one. Why? Because in a big house, there'll be more lights, more fans, and there are more ACs that you would be using. And those are going to, the money will go really high. So you have to watch out for that. In certain areas, I've known of friends, what they do is that they stay in a rental property throughout their life. But they own properties. They stay in slightly out of the city, in the suburbs, where the rental are cheap. They get a big house, but cheap rental. But what they do is, the money that they have set aside for investment, what they do is they go and buy in places where the rent is high. With the rental income, part of the rental income goes into paying for the house that they are staying, a big house that they are staying. So these are the things that you can do when you're talking about a strategy. As for me, I've been staying in this house for more than 20 years. In fact, this is my first house that I stayed in when I first got married. I've never upgraded my house. And yes, I have retired. In fact, I've stopped working since 2012, 8 years ago. And I live in just a normal house, a terrace house, where on this side of the wall, I share with a neighbor. And on this side of the wall, I also share with another neighbor. So I can hear all the knockings and stuff like that. So I stay in this kind of home. And not only that, I stay in a small town outside the city. And that's where things are cheaper, and that's how I can retire earlier than other people. So these are the things that I'm doing that I think you can replicate so that you can also retire early and achieve your financial freedom. For some of us, we also want to buy a holiday home or a vacation home that is by the beach, by a lakeside, or up in the mountains. And we'll use it for a season. We'll use it during summer holidays, maybe a couple of weekends in a year. I feel that you have to be careful with this kind of property. Why? Well, because most of us do not buy this kind of property with cash. And most of the time, we will take a housing loan from the bank or a mortgage from the bank. And what happens is every month, we will be taking money from our salary to pay off this mortgage. So instead of you doing that, using the money to pay off the mortgage, you take this money that you supposedly earmark to pay for this holiday home. You take this money and then you go and invest into those investment assets that we were talking about earlier. These investment assets that will give you a passive income. So by doing that, you will accelerate, you'll speed up your process of retiring early or even achieving financial freedom. So instead of getting a holiday home, you go and rent a hotel, you rent Airbnb or something like that. That way, I think you will save more money. You don't need to pay that monthly payment that you need to do. But of course, some of us have different ideas, right? If we want to this holiday home, we rent it out to other people when we are not there, when we don't use it. It's a good idea. If your rental income can cover your monthly repayment, your monthly loan, and some more, then it's okay to maintain this kind of vacation homes. Or else, I feel that you're better off taking the money that you're earmark for this holiday home that you're supposed to pay for the mortgage. Take this money out and then invest into investment assets that will give you passive income. I also made another video on you buying your car at the same time achieving financial freedom, and the video is up there. And don't forget to click on the subscribe button so that every time I come out with a new video, you'll be notified.